She thought no one would ever see this, not the neighbors, not the world, and definitely not her son. Because what was happening inside that quiet suburban home wasn't just cruelty. It was humiliation. And it was happening to a 70-year-old woman, in her own house. Evelyn Hart used to love mornings. There was a time when sunlight spilling through her kitchen window meant laughter, warm coffee, and the comforting rhythm of a full house. Her late husband's deep voice would echo through the halls, and her son Mason would rush down the stairs, always late, always smiling. But that life was gone now. The house was still the same, large, spotless, and filled with memories, but it felt hollow. Too big, too quiet, too empty. Evelyn moved slowly these days, her joints stiff, her breath shallow. Every step was careful, deliberate, as if the house itself had become an obstacle. But despite everything, she told herself the same thing every morning. This is just how life goes. She didn't want to admit the truth. She was lonely. Mason didn't visit much anymore. Not because he didn't love her, at least. That's what Evelyn kept telling herself, but because his life had become complicated. He was successful now, important, always traveling, always busy. And then there was her, Bianca Lowell, the woman who had changed everything. To the outside world, Bianca was perfection, elegant, polished, soft-spoken, the kind of woman people admired instantly. But inside Evelyn's home, she was something else entirely. It started small, little comments, subtle insults disguised as concern. "You really should take better care of this place, Evelyn. You don't want Mason thinking you're slipping, do you?" Evelyn ignored it. She smiled. She endured. Because she believed it would pass. Because she believed Bianca was just stressed. Because she believed, more than anything, that keeping Bianca happy meant keeping Mason close. But she was wrong. The day everything changed started like any other. Bianca arrived late in the afternoon, the sharp click of her heels echoing through the house like a warning. She didn't greet Evelyn, didn't smile, didn't even look at her. Instead, she dropped her designer bag onto the sofa and let out an exaggerated sigh. "My feet are killing me." Evelyn glanced up from the kitchen. "Would you like some tea?" Bianca didn't respond. She stretched out on the couch, scrolling through her phone like Evelyn didn't exist. Then, without even looking up, she spoke. "Bring a basin, hot water, soap." Evelyn froze. "I'm sorry." Bianca slowly lifted her gaze. And for a moment, the mask slipped. "Cold, sharp, cruel. I said," she repeated, her voice dropping into something darker. "Bring a basin. Wash my feet." Evelyn blinked, certain she had misunderstood. "Bianca, I don't start," Bianca snapped, sitting up. "You owe Mason everything. Everything." Her eyes narrowed. "And if you want him to stay happy, you will serve me." Something inside Evelyn cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like glass under pressure. Her hands trembled as she walked to the kitchen. She filled the basin. Hot water, soap. Each step felt heavier than the last. Not because of the task itself, but because of what it meant. She returned slowly, placed the basin on the floor, and then she knelt. The carpet pressed against her knees as she lowered herself down. Her breath uneven, her dignity unraveling with every second. Bianca didn't even look at her. She was too busy scrolling through her phone. "Careful," she muttered. "Don't splash." Evelyn dipped her hands into the water. Warm, gentle, the complete opposite of the moment. She reached forward and began to wash. "Harder," Bianca said without looking up. Evelyn hesitated, then pressed a little firmer. "I said, harder," Bianca snapped, irritation creeping into her voice. "Don't act like you're doing me a favor." Evelyn swallowed. Her vision blurred slightly, but she kept going, because in her mind, this wasn't about her. It was about Mason. It was always about Mason. And then the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the room like a blade, sharp, unexpected, real. Bianca groaned. "Are you serious right now?" She glanced toward the door, annoyed, then back at Evelyn. "Get it," she snapped. "And don't you dare drip water on my rug." Evelyn slowly stood. Her knees protested. Her hands were still damp. Her heart was racing. She walked to the door. Each step felt surreal, like she was moving through someone else's life. And then she opened it. Standing there was a man she didn't expect. He was older, well-dressed, composed, the kind of man who carried authority without needing to speak. "Mr. Kingsley." Evelyn blinked in surprise. "Oh, Mr. Kingsley, I didn't know." He smiled politely. "I was in the area. Thought I'd stop by and discuss the foundation matter with Mason." Then his eyes shifted, past her, into the house, and his expression changed. He stepped inside slowly, carefully, like he already knew something wasn't right. From the living room, Bianca's voice rang out sharp, impatient, careless. "I told you to hurry up. Honestly, how hard is it to follow simple instructions?" Mr. Kingsley's gaze hardened. He took another step forward. And then he saw it. The basin, the water, the position Evelyn had just been in. And in that moment, everything clicked. Before Evelyn could say a word, Bianca's voice cut through the air again, louder this time. "I told you to scrub my feet before guests arrived. You pathetic old woman." Silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy finale unavoidable. Bianca froze. Slowly, she turned. And for the first time, she realized she wasn't alone. Her expression shifted instantly. Shock, then panic, then something desperate. "Oh, Mr. Kingsley, I didn't realize this isn't what it looks like. Stop." His voice was calm, but cold. He looked at Evelyn, then at the basin, then back at Bianca. "I've seen enough." Bianca stood up quickly. "You don't understand," she insisted. "Enough." This time, his voice was sharper. Final. He stepped closer. His eyes locked onto hers. "Mason deserves to know what kind of person he's marrying." For the first time, Bianca had no response. And Evelyn, for the first time in a long time, didn't feel invisible anymore. The truth had been seen. And nothing would ever be the same again.